How's it going, my G's? Hope you're all doing well. Today is a Sunday, and I thought I'd do a little bit of sound design with phase plants today. Guys, I love Vital. It's one of my favourite, things that ever existed. But I want to challenge myself, and I feel like phase plant is a little bit more complicated. But maybe we can get some cooler sounds with putting in enough work. So I want to do a little bit with this today. And yeah, I've made a nice bass line called the Black Tiger. I'm not going to show it to you yet. I want to sort of do a step-by-step walkthrough of the sound design process, and hopefully we can explore this synth a little bit more together. And you guys, some of you guys probably know more about it than me, but I don't really want to educate myself on it, through like another YouTube tutorial or something like that. I want to just put my head into it and see what I can come up with without sort of any outside influence, because maybe I'll stumble upon something accidentally great. Anyway, so let's get into today's phase plant video.
The parables of phase plant.
So I wanted to start off the sound by actually sort of having a wavetable that was a little bit, not the complete normal one, and there's absolutely no sound coming out because I haven't turned it on. Right, there we go. So I'm just going to hit an E on the keyboard, and I've gone for this wavetable here. So it's not the analog, it's the wavetable one, and I've gone for a desolate, noisy, spectral kind of sound here. And what I think always works really well with these ones is when you FM like a deep and dirty sine wave into it. So I've gone ahead and unisoned it here as well. Give it a bit of that stereo movement. And now what we're going to do is we're going to ring up Chris Tucker. We're going to, say, when is Rush Hour 7 coming out? We don't care about the ones in between. We're after Rush Hour 7. That was irrelevant. Anyway, let's carry on. So I've got my analog sine wave here. Beautiful on its own, isn't it? And if I just add it then into this one here, that's already really nice then. We've got that low end fundamental sine wave. We've got those interesting spectral harmonics. And so what I've done is I've clicked here, set the output to modulate the phase, and turned it up a little bit. But because this is the sort of main part of the sound, I'm gonna already start to move this modulation. So I've turned on the LFO here. 6/16 on a ramp down, my G's. Nice little ski slope for you and your nan. Are those wintry ski holiday nights, in January, you and your nan getting lost down the mountain, having to hitchhike back to the chalet. You know that kind of experience. We've all had it. So we're moving the phase here, and what we've done is I've got a lot of modulations on here. I designed this patch already. I'm walking through it now. Hopefully I'll remember everything I did. I definitely know all the main important points, so don't worry. But if I miss one or two modulations, they probably weren't the important ones. So we've got this ramp down. We set the output to target. If I just click it here, we target, this little yellow square. It's obviously a circle. This yellow circle underneath. So it's going to modulate, the FM amount, And so if I right click and sort of set how much I want to modulate it by. How growly you want to get, it's up to you really. I think I had it around 6%. Yeah, so that's kind of like the main driving movement, right? But the problem is, for me especially, the bass is nice, the low end's nice, but again, the high end leaves a lot to be desired. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've actually, you can see actually it's already active here. So my mistake, it was a lot worse, right? But I put in a filter already, a low pass filter to control the spectral noise of this first oscillator. It's on my LFO as well, so it's going a low pass pattern. Please keep following. Hope I haven't lost you here. But the important thing is, it's still that spectral high-end noisiness that I don't really like so much, That's the problem I'm having so far with phase plant, is the spectrally high-end is just, how do we make that sound better? So the noise is the first thing I thought, add in a bit of white noise and blend that in. So you can sort of mask this, you know, undesirable spectral high end with a bit of that noise. And this has got a filter on as well, a bit of a band pass here. Haven't really modulated it. I've just modulated the volume of the noise. And so everything, you know, to keep things simple while we're still learning, you know, I'm just using one modulator really. It's just this one dum 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 LFO, and everything's just being tracked to that, just so I can sort of see what's going on, control what's happening. You know, nice and easy all together. So that white noise coming up, the FM's kind of moving, you know, with the sine wave through it, and we're sort of modulating that on the LFO. And that's pretty much, you know, I'm pretty happy with that as the sort of basis for, you know, the voicing section. So let's move over to the effects, which is where I'll really start to sort of get a bit more chaotic. So I'm taking my sunglasses off for this because it's really important that I have your full attention and eye-to-eye contact on the effects section, okay? Right, so the first thing I'm going to do to introduce more interest into the sound is add in some filter movements. And while the filters, I don't think, you know, they don't have that instant sort of effect that the ones on Vital do. You know, the phaser positive, the phaser negative filters, they have really nice shapes, you know. So instead, I'm just going to do a number of different filters together, you know. So I've got number one here on a sort of notch sweep that wants to turn on. Yeah, so everything's on the LFO again, on the cutoff, nice and easy to follow. You know, LFO set to cutoff here. Chosen my desired frequency range. Next up, another filter, same kind of movement, just different area. Alright. I've actually got some drums to go along with this here. Anyway, now we're going to start to, you know, actually smash all that sound together through distortion to make it sound actually juicy, right? So normal distortion, I've got the fold back mode, which was quite aggressive. And now I'm really distorting that sine wave through everything. You know, it's sort of the power of the low end of the bass is distorting everything together and gelling it together and creating this overly distorted sound. But I like it, you know? And I thought, you know, it's overly distorted. You know, I've got the drive pretty up high. I've spread it out with the width. I'm mixing it in on the LFO to give it a bit of a pumping movement. I'm mixing it in on the bias. No idea what the bias does, but it changes the tone of the distortion, of course, you know. So that would change, you know, quite drastically. It kind of loses a bit of low-end power there. But right in the middle, and if I don't modulate it, it's a little bit of a flatter sound overall, but with a bit of mix on the LFO here. You know, by ear, just sort of targeting, you know, where I can get that sort of dynamic punchiness from the sound from. And again on the mix, you know, bit of dynamic push there. And then next up, you know, I thought this is overly distorted, so, you know, let's distort it again. So Facturator. This is a similar kind of, you know, effect that I'm just pumping the distortion on the LFO like in the mix. Just adjusting the levels a little bit to taste. Now this is where it gets really cool. We're going to add in the convolver, which is absolutely wicked. And I've got the small control room. And let's have a listen to how it sounds now. So suddenly we get a lot more natural. You know, that sort of overly distorted high end is sounding a little bit more flavoursome, my G's. You know what I mean? You know, it's pretty mental up high. But mixing in a bit of that overly, you know, distorted low-end mess of the convolver, just, you know, mixing it in a little bit, really filling out that low-end like kind of frequency area, making it nice and warm and juicy, like a sort of yeah, like a sort of fajita on a Friday night. I don't know, I'm obsessed with fajitas, sorry about that. By the way, the drums in this, the fajita drums from the other video that I did about fajitas. Anyway, let's carry on. Yeah. Disperser next. Why not? I've chosen the E. I'm playing everything in E. So I've got an E set to here. And then I've got to sort of just turn up the amount and pinched it a bit here. Get some nice juicy resonances into the sound there. Sounds like a sort of energy orb or force field at this point. That's the technical term for what we're doing. And then I've got another filter because there's still a little bit of that high-end mess from the sort of the original spectral sound. I've just got like a low pass, but it's really up high. So we're just taking out, the real high end and then mixing it back in on the LFO. You can hear that sort of sustained fizz that was in the high end is now moving with the rest of the sound. It's a cool way you can sort of control that fizz a little bit, just really have a nice little low pass just in the high, really in the high part of the spectrum here. You can hear that disperser's doing quite a lot. It's getting a bit sort of underwater and bubbly. And tone that back a little bit. That's nice around there. Then let's take it a step further with the distortion and tone it up a bit here with the phase distortion. And it makes a small amount of difference because I've actually just driven it a very small amount here. It's got this nice, like, growly mid-range character to it. I wanted to mix that in a bit, because too much, I lose that kind of low-end power groove that I had going on. But with a little bit there, I get a little bit of a balance between, keeping that low, powerful groove from the original sine wave, but just kind of adding in a few more mid-range harmonics. So just a little bit on that. And I find that with the phase, if you try to mix it in, it's all out of phase, as it kind of states in the name. So you may as well drive it up 100% a lot of the time, and then just, mix it in 100%, but then use the drive just in a small amount. So that it mixes in, just a subtle amount into your signal chain, my G's. Anyway, the slice EQ is very exciting. And I found that when I was tweaking it, if I held down Alt on my keyboard, I could adjust the Q, and I wanted to sort of get a bit of a wider boost here. So I've just boosted a couple of areas that I thought the sound was missing in, So I've boosted the high end a bit here on like the stereo EQ. And then finally, I've boosted the sides. So I've gone in again and I've selected down here. It's actually not on the sides, is it? It should be. Edit side channel only. There you go. I don't know why it was turned off. So now I've got to bring up the sides a little bit more, so that's very exciting. That's pretty fat already. So I've got one more little thing before we move on to the post-processing, which is a little macro trick. And this is the chase mode. And if I activate this LFO here and turn on the macro, we'll just play it with the drums. We'll whack this up. At that point, you could be like Aladdin, like flying down like the marketplace, like on a carpet, like sort of stealing like bananas and like fruits from like the market stalls at like a really like such a fast speed that none of those vendors even know that you're there. Can you imagine it? How many fruits you'd end up with? You'd easily survive this winter, for at least a month or two before they really cut everything off and it went back to the dark ages. Sorry, what were we doing? Oh, we're making music to calm our nerves. Right. Yeah, so that's pretty much the patch done then. And, the chase mode, what I did was I basically just used another LFO. It's basically the same speed on a ramp up, and I've just set the output here to modulate the speed of this one. So the output here is going to this first number on here, and then if you kind of see that, you'll notice there's a little star underneath as well, and that's where the macro comes in. So the macro is going to be the controller of that modulation, so I can turn it on and off essentially. You could somewhere in the middle you could find some different grooves, but right up there was where I liked it. But yeah, I like the original groove a bit more. I just wanted to see, how we could use the macros for a bit of fun. So let's move over to the post-processing. So if you take a look in my MIDI patch, I've added in a little sort of grace note, 2 semitones up. And if you sort of hear what it's doing, it's giving a nice little sort of melodic, little just kind of alteration to the sound. It gives a bit of that new, nice little bit of an energy shift, just from a subtle little glide there. So really, really like that. And yeah, with the actual post-processing then, What I've basically got, just for the purposes of this tutorial, kept it pretty simple. Just a cheeky LFO tool to sidechain from the kick. You know, and it's not actually sidechaining from the kick, it's just dipping out the volume when the kicks happen, you know? Let that kick shine through, and then, you know, I've got a lot of processing on the sound within the synth already. A lot of stereo weirdness, convolvers, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you just mid-side EQ everything afterwards. You know, if you look here, you know, this is showing the sides, and there's a hell of a lot of stereo in there, which a speaker can't really replicate in real life, so it's just waste. So if we tighten that up, we'll have an overall punchier and more defined sound, won't we, Marjos? About there's pretty nice. And then I've got a little bit of fire. The thing with this sound is, you know, if I could improve it, and hopefully I will make a better one for the next one, what I would do was, you know, how I would say the sound could be better is it could have more definition and clarity. And a lot of that powerful low end in the sine wave that I sort of distorted in was quite overbearing. And in a way, it's shaped the sound in such a way that we're really slamming in the low end, and we lose a little bit of like a punchier definition, you know, and that's making the sound a little bit quieter, and especially in the high end as well, you know. So what I've done with the post processing here is I've used a bit of multiband saturation to bring up the high end a bit more. And I've used the Wings Fire, which is free, and I love it, and it's wicked. And I've got the cubic mode here, which is one of the sort of more aggressive ones. And then I've just mixed in a bit of high-end saturation on the drive and the mix here. You know, up here you start to get too much brightness, and it takes away the low end, you know, by comparison. If I bring it back a bit. Just a subtle little brightness boost there. And yeah, that's pretty much the Black Tiger phase plant bass. And what I'm going to do from now on, as I make these new bass and lead and whatever patches and phase plant, I'm going to be dropping them all into a Dropbox folder, which is on my Patreon in the Fire Team tier. So I'm going to start a little sort of phase plant folder. So if you guys want to like, if you think any of the patches are cool while you hear them and you want to support me and support the channel, jump over to the Discord via Patreon. And the link for the folder will be in there, and you can like grab them and use them yourself as well. Because yeah, I think I'm just sort of like, you know, still learning with it. So I'm happy to sort of give them away on Discord for now. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial today. Let me know down in the comments, you know, if you've got any cool tips. I'd be happy to learn a bit from you guys. What you thought I could do better as well. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Much love. Have a great start to your week.
Too great.